Trains, 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 trains. The pinnacle of public transportation for capacity, reliability, and autistic ecstasy. You'd think that a country that was one of the first to implement the railroad in Southeast Asia, had an extensive rail network covering multiple population centers, and received recovery funds after World War II, would have one of the most sophisticated train systems in the world. The Pearl of the Orient, boasting its modern transports, a metropolis rivaling industrial London or the interconnectedness of New York, all within Asia. A shining example of imperial glamour. A dreamlike city, if only it was filled with more dreamers. Instead, it's been criminally neglected. It's sardine-packed cars, egregiously long lines, and power walking in between stations. Even neighboring latecomers such as Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Southeast Asian siblings are rolling over the Philippine rails. Rather than develop its inherited strength, it was forgotten, substituted, or worse, scrapped for the living nightmare we are in today. From the pride of the colonies to the dilapidated system we're living through today, one has to wonder how it fell so badly. Like most Filipino things, we have to start with Spanish. In the 18th to 19th century, railroads were not only in vogue as a means of transportation, but as a way to legitimize imperialism, akin to bringing modernization to what they saw as backward natives.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
It felt that with the advent of railroads, nature itself could be molded into man's plans, assuming we blew some of the environment out of the way.
Did somebody say boom?
In 1875, the Spanish crown authorized train services across the archipelago, connecting its cities and provinces. Proposed by Don Eduardo Lopez Navarro, this line was meant to transport weapons, people, and, most importantly, trade goods. The first of these lines, christened as the Manila Railroad Company, was to connect Manila with Dagupan. Construction started in 1887, and the first part, a line from Manila to Pagbag, around 45 kilometers, was completed in 1891. The whole line was completed in 1892.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Let me reiterate that. In the 5 years between 1887 and 1892, we were able to complete 226 kilometers of rail. Without project managers, without sprints,
Story points.
and without Lean Six Sigma.
6, 7.
We're evolving, just backwards. This linked the archipelago more and more. By 1903, there were plans to have the rail extend to Lauang, Apari, and Batangas. In parallel, the Middle Tranvías were being developed from horse-drawn carriages to steam locomotion. By 1888, the Malabon line was open for its manufacturing hub, allowing for workers to go to and from work via railways. However, I don't know if you've noticed, but these years seem, pretty substantial for our history. 1888, 1892, 1903. Something was happening then, wasn't it? Something revolutionary?
Victory is assured, sir!
You will not find it difficult to prove that battles, campaigns, and even wars have been won or lost primarily because of logistics. Yes, skirmishes and sabotage did stunt operations, not to mention troop movements likely used the train to engage in nearby battles. But war is much about as logistics as it is about fighting. Just ask these dudes. The MMR's prominence to the Republic is best seen with how Emilia treated it. Upon its capture, the president ordered the railroad be guarded by multiple battalions. Perhaps due to his experience in the Revolutionary War, he wanted to use the railroad to consistently transport northern troops to the front lines near Manila. If you've seen General Luna, this is exactly what you see, with Artikulo 1 using the trolleys in the film. This importance to the Republic was even more pronounced when Emilio started falling back. Every single new capital he made was by chance so close to the railroad station. Guys, maybe he just loved trains, you know? Across the battlefield, the Americans understood the importance of the railroad, allowing its operation despite being on the opposite side of the war. Even the Americans used it to resupply their own troops, and were a focal point of guerrilla attacks. During the American occupation, it started to expand and face competition. For one, tranvías were merged into the Manila Electric Rail and Light Company. We know them today as Meralco. It slowly expanded its network to encompass Manila at that time. But the car, trucks, and automobiles started to compete with the trains. One could watch from the trains the highways being built to and from the provinces, some peeling off to locations unsuitable or unreachable via rails. Rather than fighting them outright, the MMR started bus extensions that ran in conjunction with the trains, ironically using the motors to fight the motors. Executive and fast coaches to hotspots like Baguio and La Union were opened. I see that tourism to those places hasn't died down. A 5-star dining with exceptional service by the Manila Hotel in the coach. While the laying of rails slowed in comparison to the bustling roads, the MMR could hold its head high with its profits and expansions. By the 1920s, Philippine products, weapons, and people were being transported all over Luzon. And then came the dark times. The crash killed demand for trade goods, making it the first time the MMR was in a deficit since government acquisition. Then, World War II, the Japanese invasion, and subsequent guerrilla war sabotaged long rail lines connecting the country. The damage inflicted by both Axis and Allied powers utterly devastated the archipelago. From Albay to Zamboanga, Benguet to Cebu, every Filipino felt the scouring of war. 60% of MMR's rails were destroyed or heavily damaged, while Manila was declared an open city in 1942 to prevent any bloodshed. But by the end, it would have been the most devastated. By the end of the Battle of Manila, MacArthur's forces were not greeted with smiles but contempt. Their homes, history, and heritage being decimated by both the hurried Americans and revanchist Japanese alike. 3,904 city blocks were bulldozed, nearly 31,000 truckloads of debris cleared, $8 million, which is $10 billion today, in damages, just destroyed the country. 90% of the port area in Santa Cruz were just destroyed, while 93% of Malate and Intramuros were in ruins. Paco, Ermita, Binondo, and other districts suffered between 68 to 85% of damages. Included in this were the bustling tranvías and numerous train stations dotted along the city. Manila was but rubble and ash. Many citizens and soldiers alike cried out amidst the carnage. From their agony, a new Manila would be born, but born without its railroaded pass. As the US provided a number of loans, one specific loan was for the re-establishment of the electric tranvía. Meralco opted instead to forego the service, saying, "In keeping with the trend in many modern cities all over the world to abandon this form of transportation service." I mean, at that point, they should be rebranded to Melco.
Liar!
But to be fair, it was a trend seen in other countries. UK, France, Western Germany opted to start moving away from trams into cars, which is why nowadays, trams are more of a tourist attraction, not really a meaningful way to transport people. Without the Tranvia, the streets were left to whomever could fill them, and whom else than the abandoned jeeps. Rather than competition between car and the rail for commuters, the rail was left to rot, and the car was the only option. Strategy leaned more and more into a car-centric approach. Only the MMR, which was remade into the Philippine National Railways, was relatively safe. But with few rail expansions and the government withdrawing support, the PNR's reach was limited. This came to the fore when President Marcos merged the PNR with the Ministry of Transportation. While Marcos and his cronies did flirt with the monorail for Manila, it was never completed. Instead, the administration opted to build the LRT-1, the first rapid transit in Southeast Asia. With the fall of the Marcos regime, we are now in the Fifth Republic.
I was anxious to protect my vote, and during that time, had conversations with many people, including a Comelec official. I recognize that making any such call was a lapse in judgment. I am sorry.
New trains were opened, such as the MRT-3 and LRT-2. But can we say we've improved? Taking into consideration these lengths compared with the Tranvia, the MRT is 16.9, LRT-1's 26, and LRT-2's 17.6. That's a combined 60.5 kilometers, while the Tranvia boasted 45.4 kilometers. That's a 33% increase. But we also have to consider their passengers too. Manila, back in the day, was only 284,000 during the Tranvia's era. Today, it's 15.5 million.
Uy! Philippine!
How can we expect a 33% increase to deal with an exponential growth of people? It's far worse for the PNR's mostly defunct stations. Due to various events such as the Mount Pinatubo eruption, bridge collapses, and various storms plaguing our country, neglect, and our favorite friend,
But if I'm part of that corruption, I'll defend it!
we've been reduced from this magnificent level of railway to this disappointing level.
Ooh, that's kind of small.
This is also a massive issue that, why only Luzon? That's right, kiddos. This whole time, we're only talking about the main island of Luzon. We are disregarding the Visayas region and the second largest island, Mindanao. Mindanao, the second largest, has been planned over and over to have rails. And I mean over and over and over and over again. Of course, until today, there hasn't been that much substantial development. Compare this to the adoration of the car.
Sige!
So many expressways, NLEX, SLEX, Cavite, Skyway, C5.
Masigati mo sumo mo kay Tulpo!
Oh, sige, sir.
Sino ang presidente ng BBM?
Ever wonder how we got to the point where you can play sports in NLEX and SLEX because of how bad the traffic can get? Because there's no other way back home. You need to get a car or a bus. But there's no railway. You could use a plane, but it's not to every province. So you are forced to get a car. Meanwhile, for me, my favorite expressway would have to be the Parex. Not because of its planning, not because of its audacity, but because of how car-centric you have to be to think it's a good idea. You want to build over. You want to build over the river for your stupid expressway. What the fuck is wrong with us? How car-centric we have to be for you to think, oh, it's a river? Well, maybe build over it. I mean, it just shows how car-centric we are. But you know what's more car-centric? The protesters. Wait, I need to get a script for this. So, there were protesters against the Parex. You know what they said? And I quote, "They are not against the construction of expressways, but they are against the construction of a big expressway on top of the Pasig River." How car-centric are we as a society that we can only think of a solution to, oh god, it's so traffic, just build more expressways? What the
Barnacles! What could be worse than a giant paint bubble?
Oh, I know! 2 giant paint bubbles!
Thankfully, the government is trying to catch up. We have the MRT-7, the North-South commuter rail, which is basically the PNR but upgraded, but I digress, and the various rail extensions for the Philippines. These will help Philippines get out of our transportation gutter. But we need to strive as a society to get out of this car-centric mindset. We need to start thinking, hey, can I use anything outside of a car? Tell me, how often has it been that you and I have been stuck in traffic, getting nowhere, because, well, that's the only way home, guys. We need to get out of that gutter. And perhaps the best way out of it is to lean more into what we had. We were the first to have rail. Maybe it's time to return to it. I'll see you next time.